morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. It is Monday, February 10th. As of today, the average price of a gallon of milk in Wisconsin, $3.18, up 4 cents from Friday. And the average price of a dozen large eggs in Wisconsin, $5.40.
Ooh.
That's up 23 cents from Friday.
My goodness.
But don't worry about it, my friends. Donald Trump, of course, over the weekend, not addressing the cost of groceries, but he is bringing back plastic straws. Well, so there's that. We have a very busy show coming up for you today, provided everyone shows up. You know how I worry about this, Greg Bach.
Oh, I know.
Sometimes signals get crossed. There are cross communications. But we'll see. Matt Randolph, Mr. Global, is set to join us at 10:33. He is, of course, an oil and gas industry expert. Donald Trump has said now in his second term, it's going to be drill, baby, drill. Do the oil companies want to do that?
Well, I feel like the oil companies are already drilling.
They are drilling.
Yeah.
We'll talk to Matt Randolph about that. If you have any questions for him, please send them in to Jane Says, JANESAYS, Jane Says, at civicmedia.us. He's going to be with us for a half an hour. So if you have a question for Mr. Global about gas and oil prices, natural gas, things like that, send in your questions. Do it now to Jane Says at civicmedia.us. After the 11 o'clock news, our new monthly segment called Beyond the Cheese. Today we are going beyond the cheese with Midwest Sad. I think it's hilarious.
And it'll be making us Midwest happy.
Midwest happy. Sarah Sandrin is going to be joining us in studio. I'm hoping she brings along a little couple treats.
Hopefully, yeah.
That Midwest Sad sells.
If you're listening right now.
We'll learn more about Midwest Sad coming up after the 11 o'clock news. We will wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it's the Oh Sure, Blame the Monkey edition. Easy out there. All the details coming up at the very end of the show around 11:51. Did want to start, though, with this. Up front on WISN Channel 12, they do a really good job of this.
Mm-hmm.
Both Supreme Court candidates for the Wisconsin Supreme Court appearing over the weekend on WISN's Up Front, Susan Crawford and Brad Schimmel. Brad Schimmel says he's running an entirely different campaign than Daniel Kelly did when he ran against Janet Protasiewicz 2 years ago. Daniel Kelly, of course, lost by 11 points. It was a big win for Janet Protasiewicz.
I thought it was 12, but yeah, still, it was a decisive victory.
Absolutely. We are in different times now.
Yes, we are.
We will see what happens with that, but we have a couple clips
Yes.
from both of them. Let's start, Calvin, with Brad Schimmel, please. Can you play clip number 1 from Mr. Schimmel?
There's a ton of big issues before the court and likely more to come. Justice Hagedorn recently announced he's going to recuse himself from the case involving Act 10. Did he make the right decision on that?
You know, only he can know that. There are certain circumstances where a judicial official must recuse. If you have a personal stake or your immediate family has a personal stake in this, like you stand to gain or lose money based on the outcome, you must recuse. Otherwise, it becomes a personal judgment call. Justice Hagedorn made that assessment and concluded that based on the history he has, he couldn't in this case. So I would say then, yes, it is the right decision. If you make that searching of your conscience and that's where you land, then yes, you should get out of the case.
That sounds reasonable.
That sounds reasonable. I'm wondering if the U.S. Supreme Court was listening to that statement.
I think not. Well, they have a whole different set of rules.
Well, they're too busy flying to private islands and
going on world cruises and stuff like that.
Flying American flags upside down.
Supremes don't have time for little piddly things like this on the state level.
We're nothing to them.
Susan Crawford then chiming in on recusing from the Act 10 lawsuit, which is expected to come before Wisconsin's High Court. Calvin, play that first clip from Susan Crawford, please.
Would you recuse yourself from any cases involving Act 10?
I would engage in the analysis that I just mentioned. I think it's really important to do that on a case-by-case basis. And again, just to maintain impartiality, I would have to not make that decision until I had conducted that full analysis. So I'm not going to announce in advance how I would decide such issues. That's part of the decision-making process in a case.
Even though your firm, you used to work for, represented teachers in a lawsuit looking to overturn it.
That's true, and that's work I'm proud of. I represented public school teachers in a legal challenge to Act 10. I was in court fighting for their rights in the workplace after the government took them away. Act 10, the public, I think, kind of tends to think of it as like one uniform thing. It was a 50-page long bill that changed many different provisions of the Wisconsin statutes. So if there were another case presented to me involving some part of Act 10, I would look at which part is being challenged there, who are the parties bringing that action, and is that a case that I can be fair and impartial on, a case where I have not previously taken a position on the specific issue being raised.
That's Judge Susan Crawford on WISN's Upfront program over the weekend.
Yeah.
Brad Schimmel, for his part, says he didn't have any involvement in Act 10. By the time I was elected Attorney General, the cases were all done in the Supreme Court and the federal courts. If there's anything lingering, I didn't have any direct involvement. And certainly Justice Hagedorn was the governor's chief counsel when that law was being drafted and created. He had a very direct role that I did not have.
Yeah. Both, I mean, I listened to both interviews. Very calm, very measured, very political without trying to sound like politicians. It's, I won't lie, not exciting.
No, neither of them were terribly. Woo.
Yeah, but that's kind of how that is how it should be for a judge's race. It's nonpartisan, wink, but they have to win your vote. So they are being politicians. It's something that they probably don't want to do. They'd rather just get the job.
Yeah.
But, they answered the questions, I think, fairly and I like to think some of them honestly, but we won't know until we have a winner and they take the bench.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
And then the surprises come.
Yes. I mean, one major thing did stick out to me, and Jane, I'm sure you heard that when we were listening to the interviews, is that, Brad Schimmel, to his credit, is not Daniel Kelly. Daniel Kelly was a little bit off the rails during the campaign last year. He was very fiery, very aggressive, and I don't think that helped him at all. It did not ingratiate himself with the people.
Well, I think if we want anything in a justice, it's that they are level.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That they're not easily excitable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't mind that both of them are not necessarily scintillating, because I don't think they should be.
No,
I think they should be measured.
Yeah.
That's what, at least in my mind, that's what a judge or justice is.
Yeah.
Brad Schimmel said he was surprised after a recent social media post by co-president Elon Musk endorsing him. Of course, Elon Musk jumping into the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race, and I expect his millions will start blasting us pretty soon.
Oh, absolutely.
We're only, the general election is April 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of weeks away.
We're about 6 weeks out from that general election. There is no primary for them. But the Republicans are saying that Susan Crawford is courting Wisconsin billionaires. Name me a Wisconsin billionaire who is giving money to the liberals, but okay. But
yeah, we'll have to search for those. That's I'd love to know who they are.
But on the other side of you have the richest man in the world throwing his voice towards the Republican candidate.
But that's fine as long as it's not Zuckerbucks.
Well, I mean, which
were actually sent to various communities all over the state just to help them run the election. That was bad. But Elon spending millions or billions in order to influence an election, that's just fine.
I bet you they take Zuckerbucks now the way he's been acting, but that's up for a whole other conversation. Brad Schimmel has out there, he has opinions that are out there that are accessible about things like abortion, about things like Act 10. He's put those opinions out there, and I think if those cases come before him, he should do the same thing the GOP was demanding Justice Protasewicz do. Is she made a comment on maps, one comment, they're rigged. She said that, and they lost their minds, saying, "Well, she's already put a judgment down.
She's already decided.
She's
yeah.
decided." Well, they were rigged. Sorry, a lot of people thought so, but I give credit to Brad Schimmel for being level-headed, and he's campaigning.
He's out there, and his ads are certainly all out there.
His ads are everywhere.
They are everywhere. So if the Crawford campaign really wants to get in on this, I suggest you start putting more ads out there, or it's gonna be really, really lopsided. On the subject of abortion, Brad Schimmel says he's not pursuing an endorsement from Pro-Life Wisconsin, which is interesting. Quote, "I treasure life even when it's not planned, but I respect that the law puts this in the hands of voters, and I will respect your will. If my values are dictating how I'm going to rule, then that's a problem," unquote.
Yeah. And
Well, haven't Wisconsin voters pretty soundly come backing a woman's ability to choose?
I mean, Wisconsin, America's, I mean, yes, it has been overwhelming that there should be some access to
Safe and legal abortions.
Exactly. And Brad Schimmel, in his interview, talks about how he and his wife adopted 2 children.
Which is lovely.
Which is wonderful. The mothers decided to take the babies to term and to give them that's great. You know what that is? That's called making a choice.
Yes, that's called a choice.
But like he said, that situation, he and his wife's desires to adopt, that cannot have any place in deciding a case where he himself says the people need to be heard. The people have spoken, so then he should reflect the will of the people. Period. Done. And if he doesn't, he's a liar.
And then what's going to happen? 855-752-4842. If you would like to join our conversation, stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Just don't know what else to do about it. Jane
morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Calby on the board, coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same. It's 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Before the break, we were talking about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Brad Schimmel and Susan Crawford appearing yesterday on WISN's Up Front program. And I'm sure you can go to Channel 12. We can put a link into the show notes.
Yep, link will be in the show notes.
If you want to see both of those interviews in full to get a little grasp of their opinions on things. Again, the general election is April 1st. Very, very important election.
Yes.
I know everybody's tired. I know people are exhausted and frustrated. It's really important that we still go out and vote.
Yes.
myvote.wi.gov. If you have questions about where to go, if you have questions about registration, anything like that, all the phone numbers for all your elected officials are right there at your fingertips. Go to myvote.wi.gov. Troy from Mount Horeb is on the line wanting to check in on us talking about the two Supreme Court candidates. Good morning, Troy. What did you want to say about this?
Yeah, Schimmel is Brett Kavanaughing us, saying all these reasonable things, quote unquote, and then when he actually gets in there, he'll do the direct opposite. He did this. Kavanaugh did the same thing to Susan Collins with his. This is settled law.
It's
when it
precedent.
came to abortion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
All three of them did.
All three, yeah.
All three of them did. Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and Gorsuch. All three of them in their confirmation hearing sat there and lied and said it was established law and nope, we're not gonna touch it. And then of course they overthrew the whole thing. So you think Troy's using that same playbook? You think Brad is using that same playbook, Troy, that he's going to say all the right things and then once he gets in there, he's going to do what he actually believes?
Why not learn from it? Worked for everybody else, so why not learn from that?
Yep, I don't. You make a good point. Thank you so much, Troy. Really appreciate you calling. Thank you, as always, for listening. Yeah, there's nothing to stop him from. I mean, what's going to happen? So he gets on the bench. You can't take him off the bench because he lied.
Well, that's the thing. I mentioned earlier and previously is that his measured, calm demeanor gives the notion of someone who will look at the information
and be
make
reasonable
and listen to the people and the will of the people, which Robin Voss hates. So that's not going to happen. So once he gets in that room, wearing that robe, banging that gavel, making the decisions, he's not going to care.
And then he's there for 10 years.
He's there for 10 years. And the court is now a conservative court again. And then they're going to be overturning all the work they did over the past year and a half again. And we're going back and forth. And that's the bigger problem, Jane, in my opinion, is now we're going to have a court that's going to be like, all right, well, fair maps, abortion. Well, I guess we got to go through and do fair maps and abortion again in 5-6 years when it switches power. Fair maps and abortion, you know what I mean? It's nothing's going to get done. We just have to go back to these quote unquote greatest hits because we have a reactionary court just undoing the work of the previous one.
That's worth a reminder, though, folks. Remember, we just got fairer maps.
Yep.
We just got them.
And we adopted maps given to us by Republicans.
And I'm assuming that, again, if Brad Schimmel makes out on the court, there will be lawsuits trying to overturn those fairer maps.
Yep.
And then we're going to go back to locking up all the power and essentially ceding it to the Republicans for another decade.
Yeah.
That went so well last time.
They won't have to come up with creative ways to do it now that they're fair maps, like taking people off of committees and,
not approving appointees
or releasing money or, legislation that is nowhere near important. It's all smokescreen just to keep power.
Before we hit the news here, I did want to talk about this briefly. This from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Hope Carnop with the byline. UW-Madison says National Institutes of Health funding cuts will delay life-saving research for cancer and Alzheimer's patients. UW-Madison is one of the country's top research institutions. Among the top research institutions. Cuts to the National Institutes of Health in this article will significantly disrupt vital research and delay life-saving discoveries and cures for cancer, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, and more. Cuts to the NIH are part of a broader push by the Trump administration to reshape and reduce the size of the federal government. I am not against finding waste in our government.
Yep.
I think that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
What I question is, where is the accountability for all of this? Are we going to see reports released to the public about all the savings that they found?
Yeah.
Or is Elmo just going to make a proclamation like, yep, we discovered all this waste and now it's all good?
Well, I think all the waste is going to come from programs that help people, social programs, medical programs. We won't find a dime of waste in the military or in law enforcement.
Well, they're not even going to take a look at the Department of Defense.
Yeah, this is going to be cutting social programs, including Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
Yep.
Those things are going to be on the chopping block, all for the glorious good of America and tightening our belt. Meanwhile, I just had this conversation yesterday with my mother-in-law. She's like, I'm afraid I'm not going to get my Social Security check eventually, and that counts for a massive part of her income.
Think of all the seniors who live on their Social Security.
Yep.
That's all they got. That's what they depend upon. And again, this cutting at the NIH, I'm all for finding savings, but at the same time, we are looking for these savings solely in order to extend Trump tax cuts for the millionaires and billionaires and the corporations in this country. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
That's why they're scrambling to find savings. It's not to help you and me.
Never has been.
And when we go to the grocery store or fill up at the gas tank. No. Elon and his ilk and all the big donors, they need those tax cuts. They need another yacht, Greg.
They need to stay super duper duper wealthy. Super duper wealthy is nothing.
They'd still be super.
Yep.
News is coming up next. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. It is Monday. That means Monday with Mr. Global. Matt Randolph is here. Good morning, Matt. Nice to see you.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We are great. Thank you. If you are unfamiliar with Mr. Global, I highly encourage you to follow him on YouTube. You have your dedicated channel there, Matt. And when I'm feeling down and I'm feeling badly, I go to follow you on YouTube because people ask you questions and then you respond. And it always is a bright moment in my day to see you. And you're very nice about it for the most part. But other people are usually wrong. And this just gives me great joy. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
I just want to say this before we go on, and we won't go into it, but last time you were here, Matt, we spoke very briefly about the show Landman, and you gave your thoughts on the show. And I read some of the comments, and one guy was like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, oh, God, why are you even speaking, sir?
Say more.
Yeah,
say more.
Please tell me how you know more. Good. I'd love to know. So that just made my Tuesday.
Yeah, I'd never run out of content.
That's for sure, because everyone is convinced that they know more and they have more insight into it than you do. Matt, of course, if you have not heard him before, has been working in the oil and gas industry for more than 30 years. He does own his own oil company, and he has also earned the moniker of an oil and gas expert. That's not something that you send off for with box tops from cereal. You actually have to earn this distinction. So
Kids, eat your Wheaties.
Yeah, the man knows of what he speaks. And we always like to say Matt has enough experience and all the facts to annoy everyone on all sides, which I think is important. It brings a little balance. So, Matt, when I first saw this article, and you were the first person I thought of, obviously, and this is from the New York Times, and the headline reads, "Oil companies embrace Trump, but not drill, baby, drill." Now, we had talked about this before the election, that Donald Trump had promised USA is going to become energy independent, and we're not going to need anything from anybody else, and we're going to do it all our own. And that is all going to happen by drilling more. What is it that you said at that time? Because I think that still holds true, and it says this in this article.
I'm pretty sure I said that's not a thing, because that's what I say all the time. So
Right.
Since I can't remember specifically, I'm going to go with that.
But it was essentially oil companies are only going to drill more if it's going to make them more money.
Yeah.
And so if they're already profitable and they're doing well, there is no incentive to drill more in order to lower the prices of their own commodities.
Exactly. And, the producers in the United States, they kind of ride this fine line with OPEC. And one of their biggest fears is that if they produce too much and they take too much market share, that OPEC will flood the market and crash the global oil market. And they've done it 2 or 3 times in the past. And between that and just shrinking profits from over drilling, there was never any possibility that drill baby drill was ever going to happen. Like it was a slogan by Sarah Palin. So yeah.
Well, and the other thing too is, like, one thing that we don't seem to, when I say we, I mean the royal we, is the oil companies are a business, and like any good business, they do their research. I think what the problem is, people just equate drilling, period, the act of drilling, to profit, because they think oil is everywhere. So therefore, if I go to my house and start drilling, I'm going to strike oil. If I go to your house, I'm going to strike oil. But that's not how it is. Oil companies take great pains to research locations, do all the due diligence to make sure that they're going to find oil, make a profit, and then make money for their shareholders. I mean, it's not like if I own a McDonald's franchise, I'm not going to open one in a desert where I know nobody's going, just because I'm like, hey, man, there's a piece of land. Let's do it. I mean, that's the type of thinking. It's like they're a business. They do the research to know where the money actually is.
Yeah, I think McDonald's is a good analogy. So let's say, someone owned a McDonald's and they sold on average 1,000 Big Macs a day. And they just said, you know what? We're just going to start making 2,000.
Yeah.
How about that? Even though they only sell 1,000. That is the fast food equivalent to drill, baby, drill. Right?
Right there. Right there.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, it's not that complicated. This is actually pretty simplistic. Again, oil companies are not going, because drilling is very expensive, correct, Matt?
Very.
And finding oil and the rigs, and I mean, how long can it take before you actually hit oil?
Well, the drilling process has sped up significantly. But a new well, you're looking at $10 million for a single well. And, from start to completion, probably 3 months. But, we drill thousands and thousands of wells every year in this country. And at $10 million or so a pop, that is an enormous amount of money. That is billions and billions of dollars. So.
And they need to see some of that money back. So again, if they're already making money and they're already profitable, why take on this extra expense to fund more wells and more drilling? According to this article in the New York Times, Matt, for drilling and fracking to pick up substantially, oil and natural gas prices would have to rise, an outcome at odds with Donald Trump's goal of stemming inflation by reducing the cost of energy.
And Matt, you've talked about before that natural gas prices in this country are low because there's so much of it. We're getting so much of it. So there's no chance let me rephrase that. Is there a chance that all of a sudden something will happen where natural gas prices will just spike through the roof?
Not necessarily spike through the roof, but there is a lot of upward pressure on natural gas prices right now because we overproduced in 2022 and crashed the market. And, natural gas went from between $9 and $10 down to $1.50. So we have cut back production some and increased demand and exports. And so now the market's back in balance and there's a lot of upward pressure on it with LNG exports, but nothing to spike it, right? We've just got prices back to, a healthy level. But no, there's nothing looming anywhere to spike anything. And what the oil industry needs to see to pick up activity in any significant way, it's not just oil prices. They need to see data that shows them for the next 2 or 3 years, oil prices will be bullish. It's you know what I mean? Like it can't be a temporary thing. It can't be some conflict overseas that just, there's like a 3-month bump in prices. They do that when they see a long-term bullish run. That's when they ramp up activity significantly, regardless of what the president or anyone else says.
So once again, it goes back to the idea that they say, we see an inherent value, we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
They're not all just running around their offices going, drill, baby, drill.
Well, it's about
some of them probably are actually. But.
Yeah, there's probably a few. I can see that. If you're just joining us, Matt Randolph is our guest. He is known as Mr. Global. Check out his page and his channel on YouTube. It is very enlightening. You will learn a whole lot. And before this even comes in, I want to address this. Gas prices at the pump are up. And we have talked about this in the past, that who is sitting in the Oval Office is not necessarily the one who is affecting prices at the pump. So for people who are wondering why prices have been edging up, can you give us a little insight on that?
Prices are doing what they do every single year at this time. So there's a period of time there's this window between the end of winter and the beginning of spring. So what happens when you go into winter time? That's when you get your lowest prices of the year because your demand is down. You're using a winter blend fuel. But then there's this little time period where they come back up just a little bit and kind of stay there. So if you I haven't looked at gas prices today, but I would be willing to bet that they're within a penny or two of where they were at 1 year ago today. I haven't looked at that. So
sure.
If it's off a little more, I'm sorry. I'm just betting.
Sure.
but there's nothing really putting significant upward pressure on gas prices. We're just we're here in a period of time where pretty soon refineries are going to have to start mixing their summer blends. Because by May the 1st, you have to have all of your summer blend in inventory at the gas stations, right? And they will start in the South and move their way north with swapping over to summer blend. So that means they reduce their refining slightly, because if they overproduce winter blend, it's basically wasted fuels.
It's not going to go anywhere. Sure.
So they're trying to kind of marry the winter and summer blends where it's a smooth transition. Plus, last couple of weeks, we had a lot of really bad winter weather on the Gulf Coast. Okay, that's not a thing until 2025.
Yeah.
They had 8 inches of snow. Listen, a refinery on the Gulf Coast can't handle 8 inches of snow. They can't handle below freezing temperatures. They're used to 80 degrees. It's like San Diego down there.
Right.
We had LNG export terminals go down. We had refineries go down. Just that, they're not in Wisconsin, right? They're down there on the Gulf Coast, and they can't handle that weather. So that actually interrupted quite a bit of production as well.
Boy, now that you mentioned that, Matt, are you at all concerned that there seems to be this complete dismissal on one side about the effects of climate change? Again, that snowstorm along the Gulf, that doesn't normally happen. It shouldn't be a thing. and it was a thing, and now it looks like we have the potential for this happening again.
Yeah. And there are unforeseen consequences of climate change that we have yet to realize. Like, there's a recent thing that have becoming more prevalent is wind droughts, because with higher global temperatures, it has some sort of effect on winds. And, a lot of people don't think about that, but, in the state of Texas in 2024, they produced, I believe it was 3% less wind energy than they did in 2023, even though they had 6% more capacity.
Wow.
So they're adding more wind, but producing less, because if on an average day, you average throughout the entire year, the change in wind speeds is 1 mile an hour, that is a significant decrease in the amount of wind energy that's produced. If it's 2 miles an hour, that's like crazy. That doesn't sound like a lot, the wind just 1 mile an hour. But when you're talking about having a massive, Texas has huge wind farms. They have a ton of wind power. And that little effect just ripples across the entire state. So we've seen that happen in Europe as well. They just went through severe wind drought, which was a big part of their problems with electricity over the last year. So there's things happening with the weather that's going to impact our ability to produce energy, and we have yet to see all of those things happen. I think there's more things that we're not seeing coming that are going to happen that we're going to have to deal with.
Yet another reminder, this is all part of a system. We are all part of a system involving climate and wind and rain and all of those things. You can't cut out one part of it and pretend that that's not a thing, and then we're going to continue our conversation with Matt Randolph, Mr. Global. Jack, I see you on the line. We'll take you when we get back. It's Monday. Words are hard.
Words are difficult.
You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll be right back. welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, the board lord on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Our guest is Matt Randolph. He is known as Mr. Global. Check out his YouTube channel. It's fantastic. You will learn a lot. Right before the break, Matt, we were talking about Donald Trump going, drill, baby, drill, and the oil company's going, yeah, no, we're good, dude. It's fine. We're all fine. We have Jack from Merrimack, who's been very patient. If you can keep it quick, Jack, go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, I'm going to start out with a little tangent. Your guest was talking about unforeseen consequences. When I started studying climate modeling, and I have a master's in chemistry and 100 and some odd science credits and all science teaching certifications, so I do have a little bit of a credential. We looked at the possible problems, and we saw glacial melting and ocean rise and huge storms. That energy's got to go somewhere. We did not foresee the fires that keep on creeping up all over the place. And so when you talk about unforeseen consequences, they can be pretty serious. Getting back to my original idea, first of all, if what I've read is correct, and I believe the figures are from the U.S. Department of Energy, we are actually producing more oil and have for a couple of years now, more than we actually use. Yeah, we've got to import some because some of our refineries can't handle what we have here. But we need to think about one other important thing, not just climate change, though that is pretty critical. We need to think about the fact that petroleum is used as a base for almost everything. You can look around your station and you can see it's plastic, in fabrics, it's in pharmaceuticals. I mean, we've got to consider conserving it is really a limited resource. So there's my rant for the day. Thanks.
Appreciate the rant, Jack. Thank you so much for checking in. He's right, Matt, as far as petroleum being in so many products and things you might not even ever think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, for the next about 20 years, the petrochemical business is set to sort of really just blow up and grow like crazy because of all those things he just mentioned. And record production 2023, record natural gas production, record oil production in 2024, record LNG exports, record LNG production, like everything across the board, even renewables, so it's not all about fossil fuels, record wind energy, record solar. So we've set records. The only thing we haven't set record with is like nuclear and hydropower that we haven't invested any money in expanding. But yeah, records across the board. And but the import thing is more of a profit center and not a need thing. When we talk about exports and imports, people really make it about themselves. They're like, we import and we export, and import and export is not about the need of the country. It's about the profit of the refiners and the people that are importing and exporting. It's a standalone, separate business. It's not about our consumption or any of that. It's about how the best way to make a dollar, right? And so it's better to look at that through that lens because then it makes more sense. Yeah,
sure.
Matt, you mentioned the big word that people, I think, have a hard time wrapping their brains around, which is nuclear. And is that something that America will ever really get on board with just basic paranoia? And, people are going to say it's not safe. And then another side says it's totally safe. Is that something that America can really get down on eventually if there is a positive plan?
There's still a lot of fear around nuclear, but the Biden administration passed some fairly significant nuclear legislation in his last year in office with little, modular reactors and things like that. And so there is the sort of appetite for nuclear is growing, and there are things in the works to increase that capacity. And there's a lot of countries around the world that have completely abandoned all of their nuclear power and closed everything down. And they're kind of suffering right now because they're looking for energy. They're having to buy it from countries that they don't like. And, it's a tough thing. And I understand the fear around nuclear. But, it's 2025. And when I think about it, I think, okay, it's 2025. Yeah, we had a disaster at a facility that was built 50 years ago. That was 50-year ago technology, right?
Right.
So I've seen the things that we can do in this day and age. And so I have no fear around nuclear because we have never really yet used the technology that we have right now to build a nuclear facility. And I think it would be significantly safer. And it wasn't that unsafe to begin with. It's just if you have one problem, it just lasts like 1,000,000 years. So that's really bad, right? So
Yes,
it's
that's a
like the
drawback.
airline industry. You cannot fail. You have to have a 100% success rate, right? So I totally understand the fear, though. But I really put my faith in technology because I've seen it do so many amazing things throughout my life and seen it advance and explode.
We never have enough time. We could do 3 hours with you, but we can't.
We could.
We could easily. Thank you so much. Follow him on YouTube. Check out his channel. Please ask him a question. Please, please, please. I need some laughs. I'll check next
Please
week.
assume you know more than he does.
News is coming up next. Matt Randolph, thank you so very much. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Thank you, guys.
morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenoff, coming to you live from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Welcome to our listeners in Madison. If you missed Mr. Global, Matt Randolph, in hour number 1, I would highly encourage you to go back and take a listen. I learn something new every time we have him on the show.
That's actually a really good point, Jane, you bring up right there. Hello to Madison.
Hello, Madison.
Because Madison doesn't get to hear us for the first hour if you're listening to terrestrial radio.
Right.
So welcome. We're happy to have you. We encourage you to go back and listen to our first hours. You can do that by going to civicmedia.us. Go to the show tabs, download the old shows. You can find them, or subscribe to us as a podcast.
Easy to do.
Find old shows there, and you can catch up with what we've been talking about for those first hours. Got to be caught up. But yeah, Madison gets us for an hour, and we want to welcome them to the show.
And encourage you again to go back and watch our segment with Mr. Global, Matt Randolph, oil and gas industry expert. He's been doing this for more than 30 years, does own his own oil company in Oklahoma, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. He really is.
Yeah.
And he's very much in the middle.
Yep.
He's very much in the middle.
I would, I don't even want to put a position on him. I would just say he takes the information he has and he makes a decision and speaks from a point of expertise. Those words may fall on one side or the other, but for me personally, when it comes to science and research, it's the science, and that science doesn't care about who you vote for.
No, it doesn't.
Or it shouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. So again, thanks to Mr. Global, Matt Randolph, for his time. Really appreciate it. Coming up this hour, we will lighten things up in the last half hour. The big game, of course, was yesterday. I'm talking about the Puppy Bowl, but the other one was also on, and that had a lot more ads than the Puppy Bowl. And we will be talking about the best, worst Super Bowl ads. Some people have very strong opinions about this.
No way.
I know.
People have strong opinions on the Super Bowl ads.
On Super Bowl ads, yes. So we'll take your calls and texts about your favorite or least favorite Super Bowl ad from yesterday. We'll wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it's the Oh Sure Blame the Monkey edition. That's coming up around around 11:51. And if you ever have a thing that you think should not be not related to politics, we do try to keep Tisbats a little bit separate from that, because otherwise we would do that every day. If you do have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at Jane Says, JaneSays, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Wanted to start off, though, with this from the Wisconsin Examiner. This is a commentary piece from Casey Peaks, again, in the Wisconsin Examiner, and it says, Head Start funding freeze, the panic was the point. This is an ongoing thing. On January 27th, the Trump administration called for federal agencies to freeze a whole bunch of grants, loans, and other help, creating widespread panic, particularly for families who depend upon Head Start for child care. More than a week into the freeze, many of Wisconsin's Head Start programs still can't access the money that they need to stay open. This is a bad thing.
This is a huge problem. Destroying Head Start, we always talk about, it's their goal to kill public schooling. But man, they're going right for where it starts, with children, like with the little kids, like these programs that really give them an advantage, and they're just freezing the money. Like almost like villains in a movie. It's disgusting.
Wisconsin has 39 Head Start providers serving 16,000 children and employing about 4,500 people across the state. The day after the announcements, the executive director of the Head Start program in Madison said her program and many others couldn't get their access to funding because the payment management system was shut down.
Mm-hmm.
She described the overwhelming chaos and fear that morning as she wondered how she's going to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
Initially, the Trump administration said the freeze was needed to ensure funding aligns with the president's priorities. Normally, this executive director said she'd have a direct line of communication to the federal office of Head Start, but guess what? When the freeze was announced, She described a complete lack of communication with the federal government, so they're not responding to calls. That's left her and staff to rely on news articles and press conferences to try and make sense out of this. That seems less than ideal.
First, I would pay money in cold hard cash to charity to find out President Trump's priorities on Head Start. His nuanced, well thought, researched,
well thought out
footnotes, bibliography. I'd love to know all the things he thinks about with Head Start. That's one. Two, we have heard nothing for the past, well, since the election, really, but really ramping up this past month about Elon Musk, Doge, going in, finding all the extraneous money being spent, wasteful spending, all the things that need to be cut. That's fine if that's what you're going to do. You won. That's the spoils of war. But at least have someone on the phone to explain it. Not this. We're going to cut your funding and then turn on the out of office number. That is cowardice, and that is despicable, unprofessional, and unfair, because now these teachers can't teach for free.
Well, what about the parents?
Well, exactly. I mean,
what about the parents who have these kids in these programs that they use for childcare? And now what?
Yeah.
It just seems to me that they came in without examining, as you said, the finer points of the funding and where it's going. Let's not forget that they found going over the 1,500 January 6th cases too onerous to do individually.
Yep.
So why would they take these programs and look at these individual expenditures? They're not. They're just shutting down the whole thing and then working. That seems backwards to me.
This is just going to be for the next however months, or maybe year or 2 years. I mean, Elon did say we'd have to go through 2 years of pain. Pain to us, me and you. Because
not pain to him.
He's a billionaire. His pain will go.
He'll be just fine.
He'll be fine. In fact, if anything, he will benefit from it all. But this is slash and burn. This is just cut with no questions asked, no thought of who it affects. And this is having repercussions. Watching a story about 15 states in this country who voted for Trump overwhelmingly in their states, getting their funding cut in educational, whether it's Head Start or it's, higher education. These people are like, we didn't expect this. We didn't think he was going to do this. Well, you voted for the man who said he was going to cut education and crush the department.
Abolish the Department of Education. So this shouldn't be a surprise.
You saying you don't know or you didn't think, that's just, I'm sorry, you had the wool firmly planted over your eyes. But you're right, Jane. These parents rely on these Head Start facilities for childcare and for education. And so you got teachers not getting paid, parents with no daycare,
childcare,
and these kids have nowhere to go either. So what are we gonna do about it?
Across Wisconsin on the first morning of the freeze, this again from the Wisconsin Examiner, parents got emails from their child care providers warning of potential closures. Of course, then the next day, the Trump administration walked back its initial inclusion of Head Start in the government-wide freeze, but some programs had already made the decision to shut down, leaving parents scrambling to find backups for child care, wondering if they'd be able to go to work. Staffers at those centers also unsure if their next paychecks are going to be delayed or even if they still have jobs. So as of February 4th, 7 providers serving about 3,000 kids in Wisconsin still had not gotten funding from the federal government since that freeze kicked in. At least 45 Head Start grant programs serving almost 20,000 children still having problems accessing their funds. And again, I'm not saying that there's not government waste and there aren't areas to make cuts, but shutting everything down and then looking for where to cut seems completely backwards to me. I read an article over the weekend, and I can't find it now, but it essentially said that one of the organizations that Elon Musk shut down and fired everyone, they had to hire a couple people back because no one knew how to do their jobs. That seems like bad planning to me.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like it's going to be for the unforeseen future. It's going to be
Chaos.
chaos based on no research. And, well, guess what? You, the American people, if you are affected by this, you're left to pick up the pieces. You're the ones who have to email the parents and say, sorry, we're not open anymore. I don't know what to tell you. I can't give you any information. That's on you now, because we gotta go through pain. We gotta fix this country.
Elon said
All that bureaucracy.
just 2 years.
Oh my goodness, guys, that's like 700. That's like 800. It's barely a thing.
Yeah. Just a couple of years of pain.
We're all gonna meet on Elon's boat. We can all fit.
855-752-4842 if you would like to join us. Cindy from Appleton is on the line. Good morning, Cindy. We got about 2 minutes left. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I just want to say, just continuously remind people, especially the ones who voted for this criminal, that this is what they voted for, and we need to remind them of this for the next 4 years so they don't forget when the next election comes. This is what they voted for.
You're right, Cindy. Unfortunately, thank you for calling and thank you for listening, by the way. I don't think despite the fact that so many of his followers say they love him because he says what he means, and yet when he says something insane, they're like, well, he didn't actually mean that. But I think people did not believe everything that he said.
Oh yeah, yes.
He's not going to do that. That would be detrimental.
Yes. Or if he lied to begin with, they didn't care. Like it was just, he's a symbol of rebellion with no real payoff. You're sitting there.
Well, you're owning the libs.
Oh, thank God. I mean,
that's the prize.
What real estate to own nowadays? The libs. Good job, everybody. Does that come with private parking?
When we return, boy, I wish I could get a pension like this. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calviente on the board, coming to you from our studio here at Radio Park in Racine. Join us. You can call, you can text. The number is the same. It's 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We will be lightening things up for the last half hour of the show. Super Bowl yesterday. Did you watch it? Did you watch the ads? That seemed to be the only entertaining thing that was happening during the course of that game after the Chiefs just got smoked. Smoked. Woof. But, yeah, was there a Super Bowl ad that stuck out to you that you loved, that you hated? We'll take your calls after the 11:30 news. We've got some clips from some of the ads. I don't know if it's just because I am the age that I am, but I found many of them just confusing.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
All right, we will talk about that.
Yeah.
And then we will wrap up the show as we always do with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today it's the, oh sure, Blame the Monkey edition. That's coming up around 11:51. Wanted to touch on this briefly from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, Vanessa Swales and Daniel Bice with the bylines. 3 more Milwaukee County retirees got pension payouts topping $1 million in cash last year. This brings the total number of county workers who got $1 million plus lump sum to 16 over the years. Now, granted, the people who got this payout are not the ones who arranged this deal.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. They weren't the ones who crafted this. They weren't the ones who instituted this. They are certainly the beneficiaries of this. But this, to me, was when I first moved back here. I worked in Minnesota just a couple of years, my first job in radio. And when I moved back, Milwaukee County at that point still had the reputation of having the cleanest government.
Yeah.
It was oh, yes.
Wow.
It was extremely clean government. We didn't have to worry about a lot of hanky-panky going on. Then this happened.
Yeah.
And it has been a mess since then, especially when we talk about Milwaukee County and having funding issues. It certainly doesn't help when you're shelling out these big backdrop checks.
Was it the county or the city who paid those 3 people too? They gave those 3 individuals raises.
That was the city.
That was the city. Okay, because
that was the county board of supervisors.
Well, that's the other problem with the whole situation. Is the city and the county get mixed together so often.
Yeah, now I'm confused. I'll have to double check on that, whether it was the city or the county.
Because for me personally, they just said they were saying, oh well, if we just raise the sales tax, poof, it'll all be done and gone. We'll make it so much.
It's going to fix everything.
And they're going to make more money because of that, and that's good because, frankly, you go to any other major city, 6-7% for sales tax isn't a big deal. You go to Chicago, it's like 9-10%, but it's going to create revenue, but it's not going to save the city if they keep doing things like this. Or the county, it's not going to benefit anybody.
The county's independent fiscal watchdog, Milwaukee County Comptroller Scott Mansky, was among those who benefited. He got a lump sum payment of over $850,000 when he left office last June. He also takes in an annual pension of about $50,000 a year.
An annual pension of $50,000.
Annual pension of $50,000 a year on top of that lump sum payment of about $850,000.
The pension itself is $50,000 a year for a pension. That actually seems low to me.
He was there for 32 years.
I would think, honestly, someone who's been there for 32 years.
It would be higher.
It would be
more.
much higher, yeah.
I think it balances out.
I mean, yeah.
With that lump sum payment,
he can afford
okay.
extra cheese on his Whoppers now, so it's fine.
But again, these people, from my understanding, are not the ones who wrote up this deal.
Yeah.
They're just the beneficiaries of it. Milwaukee County Supervisor Sheldon Wasserman, one of the longest-serving members on the county board, says this backdrop payment is what led to Milwaukee County's current financial troubles. Quote, it's just a constant reminder of the greatest financial disaster ever to befall Milwaukee County. That single action approving this plan is still haunting us 24 years later. It's just really very tragic, unquote. This backdrop program was originally pitched as costing little or nothing. Hasn't worked out that way.
Do they have like a running scroll on how much it's costing us, like that sign in Milwaukee with the national debt? It's just saying how much this move is costing Milwaukee.
In exchange for taking the upfront payment, retirees see a small reduction in their monthly retirement checks. Those hired by the county before 1982 also get a 25% boost in their pension benefits. This led to the ouster of then County Executive Tom Ament and 7 county supervisors, and to the criminal conviction of the architect of this backdrop program. Again, the folks who received this money are not the ones who instituted it. Do you send it back? I probably wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
It's part of the deal.
And I mean, did they ask for it? Did they say, we want this? They certainly wouldn't send it back if they did. But still, it's like, that's a difficult one, because while I won't shake a stick at $852,730, that's also doesn't guarantee you the rest of your life either. Like if you're retiring in your 60s or your 70s, $850,000.
Well, but you can invest it and get yourself a little pad there.
Exactly, but when you're getting a pension of $50,000 a year, if that and your Social Security is all you're getting, Social Security for now, that's definitely going to help you. And I can't say that I would give it back.
As of June of last year, the county has paid out $404.1 million in lump sum cash payments under this backdrop program to 2,900 retirees.
Please say that number again.
$404.1 million in lump sum cash payments. Good deal if you can get it.
And I don't know of any other places that do that. Usually everyone I know, and I worked in city government, when you retired, you retired. If you were employed before a certain time, you got your health benefits and you had your pension. And that paid you for the rest of your life or whenever it ran out. Not this, not a prize.
24 years ago, and we're still dealing with it. All right, news is coming up next when we return. Best, worst Super Bowl ads. Stay close. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. You can leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Just a reminder, if you don't have it yet, download the Civic Media app. It is completely free. Go to wherever you get your apps. Go to your app store. Look for Civic, C-I-V-I-C, Civic Media. Download the Civic Media app. That way you can call and text directly to whatever show you're listening to all across the state. You can sign up for our newsletters.
Yes, you can.
Which are really great. They are curated for your area. Yep. So if you live in Oshkosh or Hayward or Amory or here in Racine, the sports will be curated for you. That's a big, it's important.
Yeah. And that app is always being
updated,
modified, updated, and sent right back out to you with new features. It's just great. Get it. It's wonderful.
It's free.
Have it. It's free.
It's
free for Christ's sake.
So download the Civic Media app today. We're going to wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing, as we always do. Stick around for that. I did want to talk a little bit, just to lighten things up, a palate cleanser, as it were.
Audio sorbet.
Yesterday was the big Super Bowl, and the Chiefs got smoked by the Eagles. A lot of people only watch it for the commercials anyway.
Yeah.
It's an event. It's certainly a countrywide event. So did you have a favorite, or did you have one that just sticks out to you because you think it's so awful? It was such a terrible commercial. And what did they charge for a 30-second spot?
$8 million.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's
average ticket cost was
unreal.
$5,600.
The average cost for a ticket to the game.
Yeah. Versus the first one, which was $12.
But there were tickets left over, from what I understand.
From what I understand, ticket sales were actually not as great as they usually are because, and honestly, when I say because Donald Trump was there, I don't know if my guess it's not even a political thing. When a president shows up to an event, the security is through the roof. And some people might just not want to do that.
Not to deal with it.
So yeah, it wasn't the highest attended, and there wasn't a lot of excitement for it either because the Eagles and Chiefs have faced each other in the past 10 years, and not a lot of people cared.
Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of emotional investment in this. As you said, these two teams have been matched up before.
Yep.
And I think there would have been a lot more interest if you had, a couple underdogs in there or somebody who doesn't make it all the time.
If Detroit would have been in there, the whole nation would have been watching and rooting for Detroit.
Rooting for the Lions.
And I think even members of the Chiefs would have been like, that'd be cool if they won. Because that is a team that's been working so hard these past 2-3 seasons to get to the Super Bowl. And I would love to see it. I would absolutely love to see that. But yeah, it was just,
Well, and what I'm seeing this morning on some of the socials and stuff is a lot of people hated the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar.
It was amazing.
We'll get to that in a minute. I think part of this is to do with how old I am, that I didn't even get some of the commercials.
Okay.
They just kind of went over my head.
Okay.
And the first one that we're going to share with you, and again, I'd love to hear you chime in on this. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Best, worst Super Bowl ads. I did not like this one. Calvin, let's play the Dunkin' Super Bowl ad featuring Ben Affleck, please.
Coffee brand bags.
This ain't the Dunkings. Where the hell are Matt and Tom?
Forget them suckers. Matt Damon and Tom Brady don't have the heart of a champion. We got a new squad, Dunkings sequel. Affleck's and Belichick. Dunkings! A little more spirit on the, on the charge next time.
What? What?
I will listen to Ben Affleck speak with a South Boston accent anytime, and I just love it because it's ridiculous. But yeah,
I didn't even get the point of the ad.
I don't think there ever really is a point in a Super Bowl ad, honestly. When it's Dunkin' or food stuff, it's about being as wacky and weird because you want to be talked about the next day, and that's what we're doing right now.
True.
We're talking about it. At one point during the commercial, Jeremy Strong, the guy from Succession, Emmy winner, is sitting in a bucket of wet coffee beans. And Bill Belichick, when there's like Affleck and Belichick, Bill Belichick standing there befuddled by everything next to his 24-year-old girlfriend. By the way, Bill Belichick, I think 72 now.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's not for you or me or anyone to get. It's about really the extreme response. Either you love it or hate it. They don't care. If you love it, great. If you hate it, great. But you're still talking about it the next day.
Their name is out there.
We are now doing an ad for Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, I would love to know, out of all the Super Bowls that you've watched,
yeah,
has there ever been an ad that you were like, I'm going to buy that now?
Yeah, right.
If there is one ad that you saw during a Super Bowl and you're like, because of that ad, I'm going to go buy Budweiser.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go buy Dunkin' Donuts. Or I'm going to sign up for E-Trade. 855-752-4842.
Steve on text line listening on WAUK. Thanks for touching base, Steve. I liked the Matthew McConaughey one, Uber Eats. That was pretty funny. I think that was one where Matthew McConaughey is dressed up like Ditka, essentially. Big mustache, like a super fan. He's got the Bears thing on there, and he's just talking like this or doing his best to talk like that. But yeah, that one was interesting. But for me, that was a whatever.
See, and part of my problem, I think, is I'm missing some of these references.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know Bill Belichick if I hit him with my car. So I wouldn't recognize him.
Do you know the name?
Yes.
Okay.
But him standing in the background, look, there's an older gray-haired guy. He looks like a nice man.
But I think you're expecting too much from Super Bowl commercials.
For $8 million?
You're not paying it. Are.
That's true.
Todd from De Pere on the text line.
Thank you, Todd.
WGBW. The halftime show made me realize that I was a boomer. It was totally lost on me and not even the slightest bit enjoyable, except for the choreography. Well, Todd, that's where I and you disagree. I thought it was an amazing halftime show. I thought it was beautiful. The choreography, the story, the symbolism, the total digs at Drake were wonderful.
But again, unless you're in on that,
that's fine.
That meant nothing.
That's fine, but
if you're not in on this with this feud between these two guys,
well, but it wasn't just about that. It was one aspect. The choreography was great. The songs were great. My 79-year-old mother-in-law was tapping her foot and bouncing her head to Kendrick Lamar. And one of the parts, they had people dressed up in red, white, and blue in the shape of the flag, and she just goes, "That's our flag." I was like, she doesn't know a Kendrick Lamar song from Sunday, but she enjoyed it. She enjoyed it.
I've been seeing a lot of comments about the halftime show and that people couldn't understand what Kendrick Lamar was singing.
Whatever.
Now, in the defense of Kendrick Lamar, I can go back to watching the Grammys about 15 years ago. Who's the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
Anthony Kiedis.
Yeah. Anthony Kiedis was featured on the Grammys singing, and all I could think of was, who is this guy and why is he yelling at me?
And why he's allergic to shirts.
I couldn't understand a single word he said.
Well, and that was something that Dr. Lyerly and I discussed this morning about it, is that, you have 1 year. This year it was Kendrick Lamar. Very, very popular, just won 5 Grammys. But the entire stadium knew a couple lines from his song and we're rapping them back to him. So there is recognition of his talent and ability and his popularity. But then you have a year where it's Aerosmith every year it's different and it appeals to different people. So maybe there's gonna be 1 year where you're gonna be like, oh, I love the year that U2 was on. That was 2002. It was just after 9/11. Beautiful, beautiful performance. And then the one that everyone votes is the best one, which is Prince, where he played Purple Rain in a rainstorm. It might not be for you every year, but that one, I don't think it makes you a boomer. I don't think it makes you out of touch. You didn't like it. You didn't like it.
MAGA guy on Twitter says, "Hey, NFL, Trump won. We no longer let talentless, mumbling, pagan, satanic cultists do halftime shows and pretend people like it." First of all, I don't think you can be pagan and satanic. I think those two are mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Well, that just goes to show
that. I don't think you can be both. Just a minor little thing.
There was a commercial that was mentioned this morning as well. A texter on WRCE saying the commercial with the women's breast. My daughter-in-law and I were wondering what the they were advertising. I believe it was a commercial for breast cancer awareness.
Wanda Sykes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
Who went through that process. That was about breast cancer awareness.
Right.
So it wasn't
But
about,
it was a lot of cleavage.
Yeah.
It was 25 seconds of cleavage.
Yeah.
And then the message finally came. Steve from Milwaukee liked Doritos.
I had one qualm with the Doritos ad, Jane. The whole thing is that the Doritos are trying to be taken by alien people, and he grabs the bag back.
Oh, yeah.
Never in the history of Doritos have they been that full with Doritos. He grabbed a 95% full bag of Doritos.
Not 3/4 air.
That cost me $8. Nope, that is un-American.
That was false advertising.
Exactly.
Actually, we would love to hear from you if you had a favorite or least favorite ad from yesterday's Super Bowl. Calvin, let's play Michelob Ultra Light, their ad from yesterday, please.
We'll do 2 Michelob Ultras.
Excuse me, would you consider playing us?
For the Ultras.
Oh, we're kind of at a high level.
Fascinating.
You guys sure you want this?
Please serve.
That was fun. It's pickleball.
Pickleball. The whole conceit is that Catherine O'Hara and Willem Dafoe are hustling on the pickleball court for Michelob Ultra.
Is that even beer?
I mean, everyone needs a water break and needs a hydrate.
Exactly.
That's fine. That was the thing is that was just an extended commercial from the one that's been on the air for the past 2 weeks. So it really wasn't that.
A brand new ad.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, I love both of them. I love Catherine O'Hara and certainly Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
There's something about seeing Willem Dafoe do silly things.
Yeah.
That is very endearing.
I love that.
Because that's not what I associate with him. But Julie from Wausau liked the WeatherTech ad and the Nike ad.
I didn't see. If she's talking about with the Nike ad about the flag football, that was a great commercial because it's trying to bring awareness to female flag football in high schools. They're trying to make them varsity sports in all 50 states because more and more women are playing
flag football.
And they're actually trying to bring flag football onto the guys' side too because it's just as intense. It's just as, but less injury, less chances for CTE. So I love that commercial.
855-752-4842 if you would like to join this conversation talking about best, worst Super Bowl ads. Todd from De Pere on WGBW. Sure, Greg, we can disagree, but that doesn't make you any less wrong.
Whatever. He won 5 Grammys and has a Pulitzer. I stand my ground.
And I think we have one more ad, Calvin, we can play real quickly. The Mountain Dew ad from yesterday's Super Bowl,
weird.
please.
Bay. Ooh, the more I think of it, the stranger I see. Yeah, my flippers got whole Mountain Dew on
That's Seal.
It is. And in the commercial, wait.
Good looking Seal.
In the commercial, it's Seal as a seal singing about lime Mountain Dew. And the line goes, my flippers can't hold a Mountain Dew. And I think he only did that so at the end of it, he could say that was a good-looking seal on a boat. Like, I had more than one text from a person going, what was that?
We will have a link to most of these Super Bowl ads in our show notes. Go to civicmedia.us, click on shows, click on Matenaer On Air, and then if you haven't seen them, you can take your time and relish or just toss them as you're inclined.
And feel free, once you watch them, tell us and keep telling us. Email us, text us. That's fine. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, not a good Super Bowl for ads.
It's not
either.
the greatest.
No,
not the greatest. All right, one more segment to go. This shouldn't be a thing. Sure, blame the monkey edition. It's on the way. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
All the stars are closer. All the stars are closer. Maybe the night that my tears might let me know. All the stars are closer. All the stars are closer. All the stars are closer.
Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board. Coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. Join us, call, text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream. On Facebook, YouTube, and the platform the job of the Musk continues to actively ruin. Coming up for you tomorrow, our friend and colleague Todd Alba will be here from the wonderful Todd Alba Show. Right after us, right after the 12 o'clock news from noon to 2. Todd joining us tomorrow morning at 10:33 to break down all the Wisconsin news. In hour number 2, really looking forward to this. Matt King is going to join us. It's called the Mobile Market that is hitting the streets in Milwaukee. Some areas of Milwaukee have food deserts.
Yes.
And it is very, very challenging for people to get their hands on healthy food. Mobile Markets is trying to step in and fill that void. So Matt King will be joining us tomorrow at 11:06 to talk about the mobile market that is in Milwaukee. Right now, though, we always wrap up the show the same way. It's just about 11:53, Calvin. That means it is time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
And again, if you ever have a thing you think should not be not politically related, send it in to Jane Says, JANESAYS, Jane Says, at civicmedia.us. Use that same email address. If you have a guest you think we should book, if there's something going on, an issue in your community that you think needs highlighting, hate mail, send that in too. I always make sure Calvin sees it. No, I read all of them. Jane Says, JANESAYS, at civicmedia.us. This from the Daily Mirror headline reads, outdated national grid goes out again. From Jamila Hussain, Sri Lanka once again plunged into utter chaos yesterday morning when an island-wide power outage hit the districts at around 11 a.m., disrupting the lives of citizens and causing millions of losses in businesses and industries. As the power went out yesterday morning, engineers plunged into action to find out what had caused this outage. Engineers worked for hours to restore power. They said the reason for the outage was a group of monkeys. Reportedly, a group of monkeys had jumped into the Panadura power station yesterday morning, ended up in a scuffle, resulting in one monkey hitting the transmission line, leading to an immediate problem in the power grid. Just to reiterate this, a group of monkeys jumped into the power station, ended up in a scuffle. A monkey scuffle.
Let's put a pin on that one right there real quick. Okay, keep going.
Monkey scuffle, resulting in one monkey hitting the transmission line, leading to an immediate issue in the power grid. The transmission line tripped within minutes. The whole national grid of Sri Lanka shut down. Eventually, it was restored, but while visiting the power station in the afternoon, residents in that area say they're doubtful if a monkey could have caused that blackout. They say they heard a loud blast at the plant and smoke rising, and then within minutes after that, the power went out. So there's questions about whether or not it was this group of scuffling monkeys. Good band name.
Well, I need to know if they're okay. Like they made friends, they made up. Like, you know,
or were they electrified?
Well, so first of all, don't sell me on this idea of leather jacket wearing monkey toughs who are walking around like you want to try to take my girl? You got to take my girl. I'll fight you.
Are they? What is this? Now I want to know what the scuffle was over. Was it a nanner?
It was a woman.
It was a female monkey.
It was a lady monkey.
You don't think it was banana stockpile?
No, there's plenty of nanners. There's plenty of nanners happening. This is where I have a problem. You're telling me, I just looked this up, in Sri Lanka, a country that is 25,300 square miles.
It's a very small country.
One
monkey,
one punch, one box. That's it? That's the whole of the land?
A senior source familiar with the power system says even if a monkey had caused the power outage, it's difficult to understand how country leaders have boasted about working towards digital economies when their own national power grid obviously needs urgent updates. Maybe you want to safeguard your power grid against scuffling monkeys. Just start there and then look at other expansions.
Hi, everyone. Greg Bach here from Matenaer On Air. Does your country have a problem with scuffling monkeys? Well, we here at the show want to provide help. We want to provide a solution. Scuffling monkey mediation. We'll come to your country.
We're here for you.
On your dime.
I like that.
And we will make sure that the monkeys get along. Plenty of nanners for everyone.
No scuffling.
And therefore, your power stays online. Matenaer On Air, Scuffling Monkey Mediation Center. Call now.
Sri Lanka, we're here for you.
We're here for you.
That wraps up today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Coming up tomorrow, Representative. That's later in the week. That's next week.
That's next week.
Tomorrow is Tuesday.
True.
Todd Alba will be here.
He should be a
as I
representative.
mentioned, and along with Matt King from the mobile market a little bit later on in the week. Jim Sentel's going to be here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. There's a lot to talk about with our resident lawyer and much, much more. We have news coming up next. Stay tuned. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers. Without you, nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and texting and listening. It absolutely means the world. I hope you find some joy today and you have the chance to share it. Keep it right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you tomorrow.